all good in the sisterhood. We've got Robyn Moore from Robyn Moore Coaching in the house with us today. Yay!
Yeah, I'm so
Thank
glad to
you
be here.
so much. Yes. I love it because we were just talking about our outfits because I wore this exact same thing, I think, in the last podcast.
And I wore this to your podcast launch. So
Hey, busy
become
moms.
my Erica outfit, I guess.
That's right. We're just busy moms, aren't we?
That's right.
So fun. Well, I know a lot of our audience will be very gracious to us with this doubling up of outfits because a lot of them are moms. And so it's been really cool to just connect with a lot of people that are experiencing life the way we are, and then kind of just sharing best practices and things like that. So I'm super excited to have you. For those of you who don't know much about Robyn, why don't you give us a little breakdown of what you do and what's been keeping you busy.
Of course. And first of all, thank you for having me here. I love this. I remember a couple years ago, I don't know if you remember, when we reconnected and we were at dinner and you were telling me all about this and what your future, what your plan was, and that, you know, that your gifting, you were bringing in the financial and you were going to bring other people in. And here we are today, right? So I'm super excited. So your gifting is really helping people in their finances. My gifting is walking women in freedom as well, but in their mental and their emotional health.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, and knowing you for the past decade, it's been more than a decade now, and being able to consistently walk out that journey. It's not going to be perfect, right? It's not going to be perfect.
Never.
There's going to be a lot of challenges, but I've really seen you walk that out. And I love that we today have the honor of just having somebody as solid and strong and diligent as you on the podcast. So I'm really excited for the things that we got to discuss about what we're going to share today with our listeners, really about, you know, their thought life and freedom in their thoughts and being able to walk on the earth loving your life, right? Because you can do it. That's a possibility. That's a real possibility.
For everyone. That's the cool thing, right? It's available for everyone. And I don't do what I do because I read it in some book. Yeah, I have a certification. I have those things. But what you just described, I've walked it. I've lived it, right? I've gone from the depths. I shouldn't be alive, actually.
I love it.
I've gone from that to an amazing life that I never, you know, I still get emotional when I think about. Like, if you had told me this, you know, 10, especially 20 years ago, if you told me 5 years ago, right, I wouldn't have really believed the life that I live now. So
that's such a beautiful thing. Well, why don't we start there? How did you even get into the business? First of all, introduce your coaching company.
Yeah, it's called Robyn Moore Coaching, Robyn with a Y. And so, I have a website there that people can reach out and find out more. But yeah, okay. I help all types of people, but my main audience is Christian women, and I help people just really learn to let go of the past and to use those things that they've walked through, they've been through, to actually propel them to become greater. I love women that, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always wanting to grow, and we're always have room.
In that. Yes.
Yep. We always have room to grow. And so whether it's a huge traumatic event that they're walking through and getting through, or if it's just like they really can't get over that annoying thing their husband does, right? Like whatever it is,
just stuck
like
somewhere.
Yeah, it's freedom anywhere. Anywhere you're stuck, there's freedom.
Yeah. Well, and I love the truth of it is you can't really teach something or help someone overcome something that you haven't overcome yourself, that you haven't championed yourself. And, you know, that's the reality of life. Like, we see these really amazing lives lived on social media or on TV or whatever, but they've had to really work to get there, grow to be there, overcome some things. And so tell us about, for those who don't really know a lot about your story, like, how did you get into this? Because, girlfriend, working with people and their drama, like, I have to give it to you. I love that about you, that you're so patient, you're so kind. I mean, some of this stuff, I'm like, I'm just going to slap it out of you, right? Like, I'm like, wow, this is, you know, like you were saying, as little as I can't get over my husband not picking up his clothes off the floor, right? Like, there are just some things I don't have the patience for. You have the patience, but it's also because you've walked this amazing journey. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and it's our journeys, right? Like what is our mess becomes our message, right? Like that is so true. And our giftings are always different, right? And so that's one thing that I've learned. It's so fun that God gifted people differently. And that's what I discovered when I became a coach. Like I've been doing this all of my life, but I just didn't really have a label under it. But that's what my gifting is. And part of
I love that. You've done it all your life. You just said like a key thing. Folks, pay attention to what your passions are that you've loved all your life. Sorry to interrupt you, Robyn.
No.
You keep going, girl.
No.
That was powerful.
Oh, well, great.
Write that down.
Stop. No, because that's where so many people get stuck, right? Because, for me, like my day job is not related to this at all, right? And and I had these stories, which we'll talk about that more, right? Because life is all about stories, right? The stories that we're telling ourselves about our circumstances, whatever that is. That's the reality, is those stories. And so I had told myself, right, when I got into coaching, like, I'm too old, I'm a single parent, right? I can't, all these stories. And that's what I had to work through to change those stories to be like, no, I am never too old to walk in my gifting. I'm never too old to walk in what God called me to be. But anyway, I've digressed. Let me go back to what your original question was. And that was what brought me here. So I grew up in, on the outside, a great household, great Christian family, way out in the country, a little small school, all these things. But I started believing these stories, these lies is what they were about myself, self-esteem through some life events. I picked up some stories and I made them my own. And so from the time I was in junior high was really where my depression started. Okay. It went on for a very long time. I hid it very well for a long time until it had, I couldn't hide it any longer. So I don't hide things very well anymore. I'm past that. I don't do that. What you see is what you get. Yeah. But I held it until I was in college, and then it really, I was suicidal back the time I was junior high, but it really came to a head in college, and I was then in and out of hospitals for the next 4 or 5 years. Wow. Suicide attempts. I was a cutter. Just all those different things that just ruled my life. Yeah. And by the time I was 30, I was on 11 prescription medications. I was 70 pounds heavier than I am now. Wow. Mind, body, soul, spirit, all those are so intertwined, right? And I was trying to find answers. That's why I'm passionate about this, is because I was looking for answers and I just couldn't find them. Like I couldn't find what was going to help me. And then one day, actually, what really kind of was the catapult for me was the doctor wanted to put me on prescription number 12. Gave me this crazy diagnosis, which I believed. And I called my mom and told her, and she was like, Robyn, that is not true. That is not you. And it was the first time that I thought, wait, I can kind of think for myself. I grew up in a very strict household. Everything was kind of told, all those things. And so I wasn't used to thinking for myself. And so it opened up to the light of maybe these doctors don't have it all right. And then that's what led into maybe what I've been telling myself is not all right. In fact, it was a whole lot of not right. Yeah. And so then that's where I really started diving into what I was telling myself. And I started changing those stories. And then that's when life really opened up. I got off all of those medications. It wasn't until I got those off and started working on my thinking that I was able to lose the weight. And then from there, it's just been a lifelong journey of cleaning up those stories and creating the life that I want and God made me to have.
I mean, that is such an incredible story because it's really, you hear so much about it. Depression, anxiety, those are kind of phrases that we hear every day now. We hear a lot of people struggling. It doesn't matter if, what economic background, what education level, if you are a believer or not a believer, these are very real things that people deal with. And I love that you said that, you had you finally took control over what was right for you. Like, could I have a different life by what I'm thinking? Like, is this story true about my life? And so the fruit of what you were thinking, which was, there was a lot of depression and anxiety, and there had to be medications, things like that. That was leading you down a cycle of from what you're saying, more medication, more pain, more suffering. And then at that point where you said, okay, well, I've got to know what's right for me. So for somebody who is listening, what is right? Maybe somebody doesn't even know, like, what are the right things that we should be telling ourselves or working towards feeling? Like, for me, the right thing for me is freedom, right? Like, I'm not a slave to anything. I was made free. I can do anything, right? I put my mind to. I can learn anything. It doesn't matter if I have a doctorate degree or if I didn't graduate from high school. I'm capable of learning anything. So I'm with you on those stories that we tell ourselves and how those weird thoughts start to pop up. But what was some of the right thinking that those right thoughts that you had to start walking toward?
Yeah. And I love what you say there about, right, like those thoughts that you're creating, because they then create those emotions that you're wanting in your life, right? And the truth is, we can have any emotion out there that we want. Like, and we can go over that a little bit.
This is true, though. This is the truth. I hope that everybody that listening today, like, understands that is, Robyn, what you said was so true. You can create any emotion that you want right now.
No matter what's going on around you.
Yes.
No matter what people are saying to you, not saying to you, none of that. The story you asked me, the story for me, like, I believe that nobody loved me, and I could have given you a million reasons. When I say nobody, I knew my mom was always there. But I could have given you a million stories of why that was true and examples of why that was true. But when I started believing that I was loved, and you asked where I got some of those, a lot of those started with me from the Bible, what God said was true about me, right? So I am loved. And then when I started telling myself that, guess what? There are a million reasons that I could explain that too, but I could not see those when I was telling myself that I was not loved. My brain wanted to prove to me whatever I told it. That's the amazing things. These stories that we're telling ourselves, and we give all these examples, the truth is that those are coming to us because that is the thought that we're creating. That's the thought that we think is true. And our brain is going to prove us right.
Right. Absolutely. And it's so powerful to even teach I hope everybody's got a pen and paper and are going to take notes with some of the content that Robyn's about to teach us. She gave me a little highlight reel of what some of the stuff that she's going to share with us today. But this is so important. I've been hearing a lot of, I've been talking with a lot of moms who have teenage daughters, and they're dealing with this. So you knew that you were loved by your mom. How was your relationship with your mom during your teens, though?
It was not that great. Yeah, it was not that great.
This is a natural thing, right? Because for me, it was like that too.
Right.
I mean, in my journal, I still have journals from when I was 9 years old all the way through. I mean, I still journal today. And so I'm reading my 15-year-old journal. I was like, I hate my mom. I love my mom. She took me and bought me these shoes. I hate my mom. I love my mom. Like, we're just on hormone raging, seasons of our lives here. How did you deal with those hormones and then at the same time have all of the other heaviness that you did as a teenager?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure that I dealt with it real well back then. As far as, again, it was an appearance thing for me, right?
Well,
so
and you
on the outside,
you don't know what you don't know. You have so much learning and growing to do.
Yeah.
So be kind to yourself,
right.
mamas and daughters and teenage girls. Be kind to yourself.
Exactly. I would say that is one of the number one things that has actually changed the course of my life, is learning to be compassionate and curious versus condemning myself. Because I'm a go-getter, so I can be very hard on myself of all the reasons why I didn't accomplish what I wanted to accomplish, right? But when I look at that and say, wonder why that was, versus I can't believe you didn't get that done, right? So being curious versus condemning yourself has been a huge thing for me. But back to that, to those teenage years.
Like, what did your mom do right? Because she clearly did something right. Because you guys have a beautiful relationship. And,
we do.
It's just such a blessing that it's such a rich relationship for you?
Yeah. She showed me Jesus for sure.
Yeah.
She loved me. She did. She loved me well. She was always there for me. One of her ways was, I don't know how she did it. I have 3 brothers. There were 4 of us within 5 years.
Wow. So she's a
And so
superhuman.
kudos to her. But she, always cooked for us. They were always there at all of our sporting events.
Did your brothers deal with any of the same stuff, or was it just the one girl in the family with all the drama? No.
They did. They did. And I used to be really angry because I felt like they didn't understand.
I can see that.
I'm like, because I remember even my one brother at one point telling me, when I was probably on 11 prescription medications or something, like, Robyn, have you ever thought about like maybe getting off some of those? And I remember I became angry. I was like, you don't understand the life I live. You don't understand these things. But my mom gave me a piece of wisdom. I don't even know if she'll remember this, but she said to me, be glad they don't understand, because if they understand, that means they would have walked what you're walking in.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, wow, right? Way to turn that around.
That is some incredible perspective.
To be able to say, I'm so glad that they didn't walk, those same hard paths that I did. They've walked their own, I'm sure. But yeah, I was the one that that learned the hard way, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, so my mom, the thing is my mom has changed a lot since I was growing up as well. My parents were very hard, were very strict, extremely strict. Maybe some would say maybe a little too strict. Everyone thought we would walk away, the problem children, the rebellious children. None of us actually did. All of us have been blessed to have amazing lives, amazing families. And, but she had a lot of changing to do. Actually after her divorce, I know that's a part of your story.
Yeah.
And she really dug in and grew in exponential ways.
How old were you when that happened?
I was out of college.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was older, and honestly, the healing I saw in her allowed me to know that healing was available.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is powerful. Right. It's the people that we see, and you just never know, how you're going to bless or affect a person's life. And that's why I love the reach that this podcast has, because, we could just be goofy talking about our same outfits, right?
Right.
But, the reality is that some of the things that we just display with our lives, or how we walk through seasons with our head held high and sometimes our mouth shut. Like, we don't need to defend ourselves or use words to break down it. Like, even if we're the victim and somebody else has used us in a way that's not fair, we don't need to go out there and publicize it. And just my kids, I think having for them, I'm so blessed to have such great kids, but I would have to say, they have to see a good example. They're
watching. They're always watching. Everyone is watching, right? But our kids, to an extreme level. My son, there's so many things that I try to teach him, right? The things that I've learned early, and they'll bring it back to you, right? So I remember,
will bring it back.
They always bring it back.
Yeah.
So I remember a couple years ago, so he was only 5, and I remember I was complaining about something that was aching or something. I can't remember. And I remember him saying, Mom, what you focus on grows.
Oh.
And I was like, all right, he's listening. You don't think they're listening.
That's right.
But then you hear it come out of their
These
mouth.
little
one day,
nuggets.
You're like, they're always watching. They're always listening.
That's so beautiful. So yeah, folks, mamas out there, don't grow tired in planting those good seeds, because you never know. And I love that you got to see your mother experience freedom, experience healing in her life. And you knew, what, this is possible for me now too.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
And now she's she moved when I adopted Jaden. She moved up here and has been such a huge part of our life. Yeah. And so to have such the same growth in our life that we both get to feed into my son, it's. Yeah, you can't put a price on it.
It's a rich life. I love it. I love it. It's a rich life. So those nuggets of thought teaching. So how do you help women who are working through, they feel stuck, whatever area, right? Because we're not going to say, oh, that's a big area, this is a small area. Because I mean, it's all very subjective to the person, right? Each person can take a little tiny thing. Oh, here's a pencil and it's not the right color. And it's the biggest mind block in the world to me, right? Like I said, I only want black pencils, right? And then we could take something that's just so huge, like a death or or a divorce or a bankruptcy, a loss of a business. And we see people go through those extreme situations and just jump right back, have the right attitude. Like they minimize those big things. And so I think it's so powerful that God gave us this mind that can magnify or minimize any situation in life, right? So I don't want to say, oh, here's a problem and it's the same for everybody. It's different it's going to be different for each person that you talk to, right? So I love that you have the patience to walk. How do you walk people through that?
Yeah. And that's true, right? Like our thoughts are shaped through our life events, the things we learn as a child, our upbringing, all those different things. But the amazing thing is neuroelasticity. That means our brains can change. It can reform on any way of thinking. So what I found, I mean, I have a ton of tools that I give my clients, but what I found, and the way I always like to start out that's so powerful is, and I'll teach you a concept right now, but I can tell you the concept and you can be like, oh yeah, that's really cool and that makes sense. But when I walk you through a circumstance in your life and really show you how that's playing out to you personally, then your eyes are really open to what you're creating. So you've heard me say several times, it's not about what's going on around you, right? So there is something, let's say a crime takes place and you have 12 witnesses. You have 12 different stories, right?
Yeah.
And that's because the circumstance is not the big deal. It's the thought. It's right. It's the story that they create about what happened in their lives. And so every one of our thoughts creates an emotion. And every one of those emotions leads us to actions or inactions in our life. Okay. And that is where our results come from. And 100% of the time, our results tie back to our original thought. And so that's where the key is to changing our lives. It's looking at those stories. It's cleaning up those stories. It's an option. We can always keep those stories.
Right.
But if we want a different emotion, we want a different result, a different outcome, that comes with changing those stories. And I'm not talking about creating something that's not true, right? It's just looking at it through a different lens. And so that's what I get to help people do, because sometimes when we're stuck, I have a coach, right? Because when I'm stuck in a situation, I see it as truth and I can't see anything outside of that, right? If it's really deep in my emotion. So that's why we need people to walk alongside of us and show us what it is that we're creating, give us other options, right? Other people might be thinking, is this something that you want to choose? I mean, the client gets to choose what they want,
right?
But that's what I help people do.
It's the perspective. And I love that so going back to what your mom had done for you when you felt misunderstood, that nobody understood, your brothers didn't understand what you were going through, and she said, hey, like, be grateful. They don't know, right? You don't want them in a suffering state. Like, who would want anybody that they love in a suffering state? I think that's really powerful. So you work primarily with women. What are some of the things that women get hung up on?
I think letting go of the past, of the way that something went down or something happened, like moving past that.
So let's talk about something like, okay, for me, divorce. Divorce is definitely, I'm 2 years out of the divorce. It was definitely a rough ride, right? No one gets a free pass when it comes to that pain and hurt and that struggle, right? To leave an old life and bury it and start a new life. Where I think that, I've been able to really move quickly into my future is just being able to see it for what it is. And I think also just having friends like you and other people that have these different perspectives of what they saw the marriage as, or Erica, these are some of the boundaries, or this is what you're worth. And that's been really helpful for me to move forward. But not all women are some women will be bitter for the rest of their lives. I've seen it. I've seen women be bitter for the rest of their lives over a divorce, where honestly, I feel healed and happy and thankful and grateful that I'm on the other side. I feel like I've crossed this massive wilderness journey and I'm on the other side of a huge mountain. And I just looked at the mountain. I'm like, thank God I got through it. Right. So now I'm just every day waking up excited, refreshed, blessed, grateful. Like these are all the feelings that I personally feel every day. And even now, just grateful that I have the mind to be here, to talk with you, to walk through life with just such peace. There's not chaos. Like I remember the chaos. I remember the struggle. I remember all of the scary situations that we were in business and in courts and in all these different things. Right. And so I wake up now and I'm so grateful. But the reality is a lot of women won't go through a divorce and feel that way.
Yeah, no. And it's like what you said, it describes, I mean, pretty much any situation that feels traumatic, which, I think most people would classify, right? Divorce is one of those things. And you said several things that stuck out to me. And that was that you had people around you, right? Because we don't want to do this alone.
No.
That's a number one mistake, right, of so many people.
Yeah.
Because when we feel down and out, we want to retreat and be alone, and it's the worst thing you can do, right? You need people, and you don't just need people you need those people that are going to hug you and love you, but you also need people that are going to tell it to you straight. Right. They're going to say,
give you a little shaking.
Yeah.
Hey,
like,
yeah.
you're wallowing in your misery right now. Right.
Yeah.
And I love you and I will help get you. I will walk alongside. I will be there with you, but I'm going to speak truth to you because that's what a true friend is going to do. And so my guess would be that you had people, you also had a history of truth from what I know about you in your mind, right? Those truths that you could go back to. Some people don't start out with those when they come through an event, right? So they come to an event not having any of those tools in their toolbox, right? And so then they're knocked down lower and they don't really even know how to get out. They have no idea that they're, the bitterness you're talking about is blaming it on somebody else. And we all have our part. I mean, we could be a victim role, or we could say, no, here's what I am and here's what I'm going to do about it. But all those things that we do about it starts with the mind. It starts with those stories, those things that you're telling yourself as far as you being able to move forward, you being a great mom that you are for your boys, like all these, I'm just guessing some of those things that you told yourself. But those are the things that move us to the actions. So oftentimes we focus on the actions. How do I get there? Right? Like I've done it in my business. How, right? But I have to focus on believing that it's possible and believing and seeing those people that I'm going to help. That's what gives me the how. It starts
with your thoughts. I've been listening to one of my favorite podcasts is the Lewis Howes podcast, and it's the School of Champions, and he does he has so many wonderful, from pastors to authors to sports and all these things. But I shared a podcast with the boys in the dental office, actually.
Awesome.
Forwarded it to them. I was like, this is a must, folks. Today you must listen to this. And it was Dwayne Wade's story. He just came out with a book. It was Dwayne Wade, and he was raised in extreme poverty, and his earliest childhood memories are crying every night because he was hungry. He was raised by his sister. His mom was a drug addict. His dad wasn't in the picture. Just that extreme struggle and trauma. And one of the things that he said helped pull him out of that was his sister would speak so eloquently and help him visualize a different life. What life could be, right? Because you're absolutely right. Like where it starts is, can I see it? Can I see me happy and whole? I know for me, I could have gotten stuck in a place where I lost 15 years of my life. You took the best years. My body when I was 21 was amazing, right? Like, look at all these stretch marks, right? Like you can go to that place where you're like, you know, I've lost so much, or I'm looking at the problem here and I'm saying, okay, I gained so much. He gave me 4 incredible sons that make my life so rich. And if that was his role in my life, blessed be the name of the Lord, right? Like if that was his role, then he did it and he did a beautiful job. And thank you, sir. Right?
Yeah. And, you know, that story of that was the prime of my life. Was that really the prime of your life?
It's not.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's those kind of stories that we don't even catch, right? And
You're
like,
right.
you know, one of the things several things, again, I picked up, you know, you talked about that visualization. That's a hard word to say. That's so huge, right? Because what our mind's eye can see, we can get there so much quicker, right? And so,
Absolutely.
And so if you don't mind, I'll throw you out another tool that I do. So
Please do, girlfriend.
I write in the morning, right? We talked about journaling, or I was impressed that you've kept all those journals.
Yes.
That's great. But I write it out. And what I write is not to just get it all out, but then I go back and I really look at it and see what about this is truth. So truth is anything, right, you could prove in the court of law. You know how much of what we write down is a bunch of adjectives and a bunch of, right? We're telling the story, all these stories. And so what is it that's really true, right? And what is it that is holding me up? And what emotion am I creating for it? And what emotion would I rather create for that? Right?
Yes.
And so what's that thought that's going to bring about that emotion? And then when it comes up for me the rest of the day, I make a choice, because that's huge. You got to make a choice. So I choose to believe this story versus this story, right? Like we can rewrite our past stories, the stories that we tell about all the life and everything that came over. We can rewrite those in a different way, and we can write our future stories, right? We get to write it all out. That's the crazy thing. Yeah.
I love that. Well, and I love that you write it on paper, you know, in a journal format, like this is what I did. This is how I felt about it. Like, this is what I'm
holding back.
Right. Like you put it on paper and then you take some time to then reflect on what can be proved in the court of law. That is so powerful, because you're absolutely right. Like going back to like what I was saying to myself, this is the prime of my life. I've got the best. I had the best body when I was 21, right? Like that is super goofy. Is that provable in the court of law? No.
Right.
Right. Absolutely not. And actually I was at the doctor's in January. She's like, Erica, you're in perfect health. Look at that. I'm in perfect health. Why can't I go to the gym and have the best body ever? Right. Like, why can't I have, you know, the abs that I always dreamed about? Or, I mean, I could have better abs than I had when I was 21.
Yeah. And what is your definition of prime? Right? Like it may have changed since you were 20. Like your definition of prime may be for healthy growing boys, right? Like it may be them starting their own lives. I mean, you just shared with me what amazing boys you have and all the amazing things that they're all the things that they're doing and what's right. Like that came, and that's another thing we don't do very often. We don't stop. We can often focus on what we don't have or what we want, and we stop to see what we've created, right? We stop to see the blessings that are in our lives, because again, everybody has them.
Yep.
We just have to stop and realize, and when we do that, when we take the time to see those blessings, guess what? That grows our growth to actually do those things that we're not doing so well. It doesn't come from beating ourselves up or reminding ourselves we haven't got there. It comes from stepping and looking at all that we've already created, that evidence for our brain that we can do it again.
I love that. Taking an account of all the wins. I love to do it with lots of Post-it notes. That's why I have Post-it notes all over my office and on my windows. I have lots of glass that surrounds my office and amazing views, but my views are now obstructed.
That's okay.
All my
with good Post-it
colorful
notes.
Post-it notes. I need to see it. I need to see it because sometimes when a campaign doesn't go out the way that I want it to and it feels like a complete failure, I feel like a complete failure. But just because a campaign was a fail doesn't mean that I'm a failure, right? Like I need to see those wins. I need to see those things in front of me, taking an account of all the good things that have happened in our lives that God has helped us walk through. And especially with teenagers, I do this a lot with the boys because they tend to zero in on the things that so Noah drives a mom car, a Toyota Sequoia, right? Which is a great car. It's a really great car. It's, wrapped in steel, right? Like it's a car that, he's safe in, and he drives the four boys or the other his three brothers to school. So all four of them are in the car in the morning and then driving home after practices at night. So he drives the boys around now. For the first time, I've got all this freedom, which is absolutely incredible. This is why I've added now a podcast to my schedule, right? Like this is so cool.
Take it off chauffeur.
Right. This is my life now. I love it. I get to do what I love. And so, Noah's really been focusing on Mom, it looks like a mom car. It looks like this. And I'm trying. And so we have to back up like, hey, son, let's remember, like most of the friends that you have that are teenagers now don't even have their own car. Because they can't pay for their insurance. They can't pay for gas. So that means they can't have a girlfriend, right? Because they have no car to pick them up in and take them to the movies, right? Like count your blessings. Look at everything that's going right for you, right? Like look at all the ways that we've pushed through. And it was last year in January that I really started doing these lists with Noah of what do we want more of? What do you, Noah, want more of? What do you want less of? And just so we started making these lists, and I reviewed it a couple weeks ago because I saved it. It's in my phone. And one of those things that he had made a list, this year, this is what I want to see. And one of those was his knee. He had a major surgery on his knee. And when he had this surgery, he was the captain of his basketball team, and he had to leave school for 6 weeks, quit the team, wasn't able to go to the games, right? Like his whole identity was wrapped up in like, he's this star player. He gets all these accolades. The coaches are always, cheering him on, the crowd, the team, like high fives. He lost all of that. And all of a sudden he's at home by himself. I'm at work. The boys are at school. No friends. No one's calling. No, you know what I mean? Like he's just there. And he walked through his own journey of what was his version of depression. And we walked through that together. And for him to now, for me to be able to see that list, because one of those things that we started that when he went through his surgery and when he felt so alone. And, he had one parent walking with him through that time. And that was really challenging for him. And so he made that list. Okay, well, this is what I want. This is what I want my life to look like next year. And today, okay, when we go through that list, what? He's got a girlfriend. He's got this freedom with this car. His knees, his legs are like tree trunks, right? Healed, whole. He was when he was released, from his doctor's care, he worked out harder than ever and put his time and attention to his body, stays healthy. He won't eat sugar. That boy doesn't eat sugar. He's about protein and vegetables and caring for, like he has a whole new appreciation for his body because of what he walked through. But when we get to see that list, so we were at breakfast and he was like, Mom, I have a mom car. It's a Toyota Sequoia, Mom. Buddy, let's go through this list. Wow. Look what God has already walked us through. Look what we've done so far together as a team, as a family. There's no reason to believe that you can't have the dream car that you want, but that's going to be something that you walk out, right? Mom's done her part. I did my part. You can, he's like, Mom, it needs to look like a man car. Son, a car doesn't make you a man. And that's the truth though. Like we feel like if I can drive that fancy car, I'll get the feeling that I want. right? I want to feel sexy. I want to feel like I'm getting the attention. I want to feel, when in reality, like, we can have those feelings now.
Yeah, and you just hit a key point. I think when you asked earlier, what do most people struggle with? I think it's a universal thing of thinking, if I move myself in a different situation, whatever that situation is about, that things will be better. But the truth is, we go with us wherever we are. The work is done internally. Yeah. Right. To enjoy where we are and have those feelings, those emotions we want right where we are. And when we can have them right there, then it's time to look at whether we want to move to the next one.
Right.
It's not, when you're in chaos in a situation, is not the time to leave, right? It's to find that peace right where you are, because then you can walk whichever direction you choose, you're going to have that peace.
You have a clear mind, right? You're not making decisions based off of, I have to have this feeling, and there's a desperation for a feeling. So it could even be, a woman thinking about dating, right? Because I have to feel wanted. No, you have to be okay with the fact that you are enough and you love yourself, and life is good either way.
And that's when you attract that.
Right.
That's the crazy thing about it.
That's right. So until we center ourselves and get in that good position, even for Noah. So Noah was because, his little Toyota Sequoia, I bought it cash, and he was like, okay, Mom, so if I sold this, I could only get this though. I can't get this man car. If Noah was to make an emotional decision, he could go and get himself into a lot of debt. Right? He could. He's 17 now. He could turn 18, have his own credit, and go get himself into debt and get himself into trouble. And that's this life cycle that decisions are creating the life that we live. Right? I'm not getting it all right. You're not getting it right. But what we can do is right now decide, okay, you know what? I'm going to be the very best version of me that I can in the situation that I am. So Noah in his Toyota Sequoia, once he gets to the place where he's like, I'm at peace, I'm thankful, I'm grateful, I have 4 wheels, right?
Right.
Then he can start looking at.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Preparing for what that future of his dream car would look like. But if he doesn't get himself to that place, then he's just emotionally making decisions that could possibly get him into trouble.
Yeah, because his thought is he's thinking that that's what makes him a man, or whatever it is. That's what makes him manly.
Beefy.
Yeah.
A beefy car.
A beefy car
makes him a beefy athlete.
Right? Which we know that's not true, but he hasn't been convinced of that yet, right? And so he has to play that out until he comes to a point and realize that that's not what being a man is about at all.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And so it's pretty interesting, like, what is it about women that we kind of have like this whole, theme of things that we all feel at the same time, but what are some of the things, you said some of the things that women feel are that they're overcoming? You said letting go. Was there anything else that you see as a theme for women? Because we all share very similar things.
I think one is, like I said, not letting go. One is that they are responsible for everyone's feelings, right? As a mom, as a wife, as a worker.
It's heavy too. That's a heavy feeling.
Or that other people are responsible for our feelings. That's a huge thing that I'm teaching my son, right? I found myself early on saying, you are making mommy really upset. And I learned really quick, no, that's not truth. You're not making me upset.
That's powerful, Robyn. That's right.
Yeah, it's not. I choose my own emotions, right? I can't blame what I do on what you're doing. They're two different things, right? And I still am going to teach him of the things that he wants to do so that he can be his best self. But like when I'm yelling at him not to yell, like what how does that make it? What is that teaching him, right? And so I think that we think that we have to be that for all people, and we think that other people control our emotions, right? We think that we are responsible for everyone's happiness, and those are lies. We can never make everyone happy, right?
That's right.
We do what we're called to do at our best, and then we can stand strong in knowing it doesn't mean that everybody else is going to behave.
Right.
I think oftentimes we think our kids' behavior is a reflection of who we are. And again, it's that doesn't
To
walk
disconnect from that.
simultaneously.
No.
Yeah. I mean, we do our best, and we are responsible for a lot of things. But
because Hezzy breaking a television at Walt Disney World would have been a bad reflection. But yes, I just disconnect from that.
Well, and that was
Robyn.
an accident,
Yeah.
right?
It
wasn't.
right.
He didn't
It
pick
wasn't
up a rock
purposeful.
and throw it at it.
Well, the boys jumping in the elevator, that was on purpose. But
again, the perspective is, if that's what the worst thing my teenager is doing,
right.
Way to go, Mom, right? Well, way to go him, right? Because he's making those choices, but you're feeding into him, which is allowing him to make those good choices for his life. So stop for a moment.
Yes.
Pat yourself on the back. Yes.
Good job, Erica. Well, and nobody gets to decide how you feel. Mm-hmm. You decide it through your thoughts.
Yeah. And I don't know what your reaction was to when the TV was broken.
Honestly, I was shocked, Robyn, because I had so many other things happening. I was just like, just send me the invoice, right? Yeah. It's fine. I had a conversation with Hezzy, like, hey, buddy, I gotta be able to trust that you're going to go away from Mom and out of the household and be a blessing. He's like, Mom, it was an accident. You know, I got this. I'm a good kid, Mom. You know what? You are a good kid.
Yeah,
he reminded me.
He is. You know, I remember too, my son, I haven't even told this to a handful of people, that my son broke a window.
Not on purpose? Or on accident?
Another kid told him to.
Oh,
and
my goodness.
Yeah, and he followed through.
That.
And at first, I was just like, I just could not even believe it.
You're failing.
Yeah, I was just
what
like,
am I gonna do?
Literally, that's where my brain went.
Then you go like, it's a one-parent household. That's why, right? Yeah. Like he has no dad.
Exactly. Right? Like all these, right? Like what is he going to be in life? Right? Like my brain just went crazy.
That's so funny.
And I remember so I had to call my uncle and tell him, right? Because it was his property.
No.
It was, and I was crying. I just felt horrible, right? But you know what my uncle said? He said, Robyn, he goes, this same thing happened to me when I was a kid. I told your brother, which is my dad.
Aww.
And he goes, actually, my dad gave us grace because we came and told him what had happened. But what he said to me was, Robyn, what a time to learn a lesson at this age versus when he's 16 behind a wheel and some kid tells him to do something stupid.
That's right.
And I was like, now there is perspective.
More perspective.
Right.
You've got some wisdom.
I do.
In that family of yours.
I do.
That.
But I had to take that and say, yeah, we're going to learn. There's going to be consequences, and we're going to talk about it, of course. But let's use this to learn. Let's make this. That's what parenting is. We're teaching our kids how to learn, to process, and make their own choices when the time comes.
Well, that's discipline, right?
Yeah.
Discipline is to disciple, to make a disciple. Mm-hmm. Discipline is to make a disciple, to teach.
Mm-hmm. And what better way than when they make mistakes?
Yes.
And what better way to make smaller mistakes? Jump on an elevator, right? Break a window, even though it did feel small at the time.
Break a TV. Our little kids, our little hooligans.
But those are lessons that, those things can replace. You can't replace a life when you're in a car and some kid, chooses to listen to their friend and do something. Right. It's perspective. We look at it's the same thing in our lives. You talked about these problems. We can use them to make us better. We call them problems, right? But we can use that to make us better or be all that we're called to be and become better people. Or we can become bitter and we can become bitter about them and
have really terrible skin. Because it's linked, folks. Bad skin and bitterness, right? Just like that, just aging. It ages you.
Well, death.
It's the stress.
All of it. Yeah.
It's the death in your mind is creating death in your body. I was in Jamaica a couple weeks ago, and it was just so amazing. I think the perspective of the people, but one of the things that the ladies was saying was, we don't have problems in Jamaica. We have situations, right? Yeah, man. Right? We have situations and we don't have any problems. And teaching that perspective to our children. So what are going to be some of the ways that you give these life skills to your son? How, do you have a system? Do you have, I know you're a writer. I know you've got all these amazing coaching things. What is going to be your system to be able to say, here you go. This is for you to win in life.
I think it's everyday life. I think it's the example that I live by, what I teach him.
It's powerful.
Yeah, and I'm learning more and more about, I think, a single parent household. Sometimes, I believe the lie of he's not getting enough discipline or whatever, right? Like
that
he doesn't have this heavy
missing.
hand. Yeah, there's always something missing. And you know what?
Hogwash.
Total hogwash.
Yeah.
In a purpose. Yes. Do I want to be married? Do I want him to have that? Yeah. But for the right person, of course, that's great. But this everyday, it's that every day that I get to, what I was going to say is so often I'm stuck on the consequences. Like I'm stacking up all these consequences. And what I'm learning is I want to be teaching him. Right? I want to stop and have those teachable moments. Not that we don't have consequences with it, but I want to teach him so that he can make, I told you that I came in a really strict household and kind of decisions were made for me. So this might seem a little crazy, but when I was in college, I couldn't make a single decision. I didn't know what color I liked. I didn't know how to make decisions because I hadn't learned that.
Wow.
And so it's important for me to teach him those type of things.
To think for himself.
And yes, we have guidelines and we teach and all those things. Yep. But part of it is teaching him the process. When somebody says something to him at school, teaching him the process, asking a lot of questions instead of giving him, well, that's not true, Bo. I ask the questions like, what, how did that make you feel? Is that really true? Is what they say true? Like, let him come to his own conclusion and thinking of it so that when he's in those situations again, he can reason it out.
I love that. That is truly powerful, Robyn. Honestly, like being able to leave that legacy that I love in the Bible, just where it talks about Abraham was chosen as the father of many nations because he would teach his children. Right? Like there is a blessing when we just stop and we slow down and we teach these things. And for us, the people that are in front of us are all the time are our kids, and we're teaching them. You've got the coaching company, you're teaching these women these skills. But being able to also, for us as well, to learn and grab from the mentors and the people that are out there. There's so much wisdom. There's so much knowledge out there. The Bible says that people perish for a lack of knowledge, right? It's the lack of knowledge. And so, how do you gather? You said that you didn't even know how to think. You had to learn. You had to grow. You're a lifelong learner. How did you learn and grow, and what was kind of that journey for you getting to the place that you are now? Because it looks completely different.
Yeah, it is completely different. And I think part of that is, like learning the example we were talking about, making decisions. Guess what? I just had to step out and start making them. And some of them were possibly right, wrong, right? I just had to step out and start practicing, right? And being okay if I failed. Right. Yeah. And not telling myself that it's a learning. We talked about the word. It's so important. Right. I found myself so many times saying, especially as a single mom, like all these things, I have to, and I have to. No, I get to.
Yes.
Right. Like even those little words, if I get to, I desire this. I don't want it. Want is a lack. I desire these kind of things. So just those little changes in your life. But sometimes you just have to step out too. And you have to realize that it may or may not go as you looked for it to go.
Yeah.
You just walk in the best that you can. Yeah. And you love yourself along the way, whichever way that it goes.
Yeah. So I love that you said stepping out, doing something different. So for somebody who hasn't had a coaching experience, like what does that look like? What are they going to experience? Just kind of give us
freedom is what they're going to experience.
Yes, girl.
That really is what that's the goal. And that's what my clients,
it's
experience day after day. It really is.
To talk to somebody who has a different perspective, not as a therapist, let's rework. It's as a let's push you forward, and things are going to shed as you're running forward. Things are shedding, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm future focused, right? Like, where do you want to be, and let's get you there, right? And so usually for my clients, that's freedom, right? For the things that have in their mind that they're creating, right? Like feeling their life that they're not good enough, or they're lost, or they can't let this particular situation go, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, your past forms you. It's not that it never comes up, but we can't change the past, right? We can change how we look at it, and we can move forward. And so that's that's my ultimate goal. That's what my clients do. We're getting to freedom. And so, for my client business, it's one-on-one. I do it all phone, Zoom, so I can help anybody in the world, right?
Right.
And so, we walk through those things. We make it very personal to them. I have a lot of tools that we walk through. I give them a lot of things that can really propel them. They ultimately have to take the step, right, to reach out, and then they have to take the step to put it into practice. But like, they have a cheerleader alongside of them the whole way.
Yes.
And if they are willing, if they're at that point that they're willing to do what they need to do, like, they will absolutely excel. And it's so fun to watch.
Yeah, that's so amazing and so rewarding. I'm so grateful that we have people in the world like you, Robyn, that I meet girls at all the time, and I'm always passing your phone number along, like, you know what, this sounds like a Robyn situation. Let me go and work on this business, right? Like, it's not a money problem. If it's a money problem, I'm with you, girl, but this is a Robyn situation. So I'm so grateful that there are people like you in the world. And I'm going to be praying just that, that you are consistently refreshed, that as you go out and refresh others, that you are consistently refreshed. And I know beautiful things are in store for you, but we'll wrap this up with the 3 things that you want to be remembered for.
My faith is important to me. So I want to be remembered as a woman that loved God, that served God, that followed him, and that let his light shine. So that's definitely one. I'd say second is probably that same thing, love, right? I want to be somebody that is known for loving other people well.
Yeah.
My kids, my neighbors, the homeless man on the street, like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I want to love well. I want my son to see love. And then third, I would say I'd want to be remembered as somebody that walked in their calling, right? That walked powerful. Out their life and what they were called to do, and whatever that took, that did that to let their gifts and who they were shine.
That's beautiful. And especially because there are so many wonderful people out there that are designed to do phenomenal things, and they know it. They're just living a whole different life, and that's where that depression, that anxiety, that feeling of stuck, I can't move, I'm never going to get here, I'm never going to, all those really yucky, I wish, this victim mindset. And the reality is, it's just today, you make one little degree shift, right? And one of those little degree shifts could be call Robyn, find somebody in your church, find somebody in a meetup group, find somebody who is living the life that you want, who has the skill set that can help pull you forward, and really just continue to walk towards the what that great life that you love could be, right? Walking towards it. So anybody, if you can do it, Robyn, if I can do it, then anybody
can do it.
This is possible. It is possible. So for our listeners out there, like, I really want you to just point to yourself and say, you know what? It's possible.
Absolutely.
It's possible. I am a living story, a true story of what is possible, what people can overcome, what people can get through, and what people can champion. It's possible. If it's possible for me, it's possible, Robyn. It is possible for you.
That's right.
So I am so excited to hear about all the different ways that your business is making an impact in the world. So how can people get in touch with you? Like, if they want to get some coaching, if they want to do one-on-one, if they want to get some tools, how do they reach out to you?
Yeah, there's a few ways. So they can go to my website, robynmoorecoaching.com. It's Robyn with a Y. They can email me at rmoore@robynmoorecoaching.
Okay. And we'll put it on the lower third for everybody that's watching.
Or on Facebook. I'm pretty active on Facebook. On my personal page, it's robyn.moore.16. So any of those ways, just shoot me a message and we'll get in contact.
Yay. All right, girl. Well, I love you. Thank you so much for what you're doing for this sisterhood and for women all across the state, the nation, and the world. And I know great things are to come for you. So,
Thank you, Erica.
Yes. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Bye.